Welcome to the Root of It All podcast with Tree, where you will learn new habits for human betterment. We talk about all things related to personal growth, and everything is on the table. Each episode will explore different topics like self-care, mindfulness, goal setting, and more, with a focus on practical tips and actionable advice you can start implementing in your life today. Our goal is to help you become the best version of yourself and live a more meaningful life. So grab a drink, cozy up, take your dog for a walk, or go for a drive. Join us for some fun and meaningful conversations with some amazing humans. Let's grow together.
Hello, everyone. So today I'm super excited. The guest that we have today is Victoria from Sold via Victoria. So Victoria and I, we've been friends for at least 3 years for now, and I do some marketing on radio with her, and I'm so excited to share with you about this venture that she's on. She has some amazing things, and you're going to find out all about these amazing things that she does. So let's get right into it. Thank you so much for joining us today, Victoria.
Thank you for inviting me, Tree. I appreciate the opportunity to come onto your podcast.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'm so excited for you to share with people this skill that you have of
Yeah.
just changing the hat that you're wearing, meaning that working for a media company, selling homes, you're also a poker player, and you have
Okay.
this great, and you love to travel. So you find time for you as a human being to do all of these things. And I want to point out from a human behavior perspective that it's a wonderful thing for all of us to have our needs met. So for you to just get stuck at one job, to do one thing all the time, that's just not who you are. So teach us about sort of how this all came about or whatever you want to
Yeah.
share.
Yeah. So I mean, variety is the spice of life, right? So I'm always moving in a forward direction. And I love sales and I love media. But throughout my entire career, it's always been, you should go into real estate. You should go into real estate. You'd be really good at real estate. So you hear something enough and eventually you're like, I'll give it a try. So that's sort of the journey I started on a couple of years ago. And it's just a matter of balancing and being really, really flexible with the schedules that I have and understanding that, I am working to live. Like I am not living to work. So, I like to go on vacations. I like to travel. And yeah, I like to play poker as well in different places. So I just have to make sure I'm organizing my schedule as efficiently as possible and ready for change and understanding that it's always going to happen. Anticipate change. We know it's the one thing that's guaranteed. So I try and
Mhm.
anticipate it every day and so I can make good decisions along the way.
Awesome. And so I want to kind of delve into this whole poker piece because there's some interesting human behavior traits that actually
Yeah.
has to happen for somebody to entertain into even sitting at the table, right?
Yeah.
To be as bold to say like, yeah, I deserve sitting at the table, or having the confidence knowing that for not even from a money perspective, but to know that you can play good enough to be at the table. And there's it's not even ego. Like you're the type of person that doesn't have any ego. Like you're just all like open. So that's a great thing that you have to connect with people. But
Mhm.
so I want to know, how did the
Yeah.
journey of being a poker player start? Like, did you just wake up one morning and be like, hey, I want to learn how to play poker?
Yeah, no, that's not how it happened. I hate to say it, but I was dating a man who loved playing poker, was very, very passionate about the game, and he wanted to teach me. And I was, again, willing to learn. I love trying new things. So it was one of those things that I had a little bit of a knack for kind of out of the gate. Really, really enjoyed it. I think it speaks a lot to my sales personality as well, negotiating and reading sort of the room. And in this case, you're reading your opponent. Um, but yeah, I ended up that I just love this game, and there are a lot of parallels between my careers, my dual careers, and playing poker for sure. Yeah, yeah, it was because of a boy, Tree. That's how I got into
And that's
poker.
always the answer to a lot of things, right? Yeah. And so the interesting thing with poker, and even when you're talking about reading people, so being a real estate agent, absolutely, you need to read the client, you need to read their comfort level. And so the parallels with poker and with just in terms of reading people for what it is that you do, even for the media company. So it's all still sales. You're still reading the person, right? So teach us what sort of things, and going back to the poker specific, like what sort of human behaviors, because it's all about nonverbals when it comes to poker. Okay.
Yes.
So what are
Yeah.
the most common nonverbals that you would notice when you're playing, or what you would look for? Or is it, do you trust your gut?
Um,
Is it your own
I mean,
nonverbal?
some of it is that, but no, there's a lot. Everybody has tells, is what they're called in poker. And some people are really good at understanding what their tells are and, managing them and things like that. But depending on what table you're sitting at and who's around the table, you're going to see people when they have maybe a big hand, they immediately look at their chip stack and see how much they can possibly win and how much they can put in. That's a pretty good indication. Sometimes you'll see people just like staring, everybody watching them while they're checking their cards. Sometimes people have a really big hand, or if they're bluffing, you have to figure out which is which. They'll have like a vein right here that'll pulse that you can see. There's
Mhm.
all sorts of things that the body does that you're not thinking about
So people
that
that are
kind of give
just
it away.
yeah, so people that are just listening to this, Victoria was pointing to the side of her neck just below her
All
ear,
right.
right? Like in terms of like did you say the
Yeah.
vein on the side of their neck
Yeah.
if they're
There's
lying?
like a vein in your neck and it just will pulse and you can see it on some people, and some people hold their breath. Some people, their eyes will dilate a little bit, get excited. There's so many different, everybody is different in their sort of tells, and you have to watch people. Some people touch their hat or just make a gesture, lean back, lean forward. And then when people are storytelling or bluffing, sometimes they like to look really, really strong and, see if they can get some people on board, or they like to look really, really weak and try and get people that way. So it's really, um, it's interesting. You just learn the person you're playing as you play them a lot of
Hmm.
times, or you end up playing the same people multiple times and you kind of get an idea for what they're doing. Yeah.
Well, and the interesting thing, like, have you ever read any books or listened to any like Malcolm Gladwell? Do
No.
you know? No? So he talks about human behavior, and he talks about it from if you do anything 10,000 times, then you become really good at it. So the fact that for you, you gave yourself the opportunity to learn, and then within yourself, you had this good feeling of like, oh, I'm good at this. Because at first you were just trying to please the guy, right?
Finding common ground.
Yeah. And so because you're learning people's tells, and that's given you an opportunity to build your intuition and to trust your intuition, which actually makes you even better at what you do when it comes to poker. And even we're using poker as like a metaphor, right? Like
Mhm.
it's not just poker in itself, it's actually how it is that you operate as a human being, which I find so fascinating about you. So also too, even if you're watching this, you can see Victoria, but Victoria is a very tall human being. Well, tall, actually, everybody's tall to me. I'm only like 5'2". So it's, so do you find like, even just with your height, that walking up to like the poker table, that you can like, do you purposely step into kind of like an intimidation sort of role to intimidate people? Or am I giving you some ideas right now?
No, it's funny. I don't do that. I like being underestimated at the table, to be honest. So,
Yeah.
playing male counterparts, a lot of times they underestimate a female poker player, which is fantastic, and I will use it to my advantage every time. So, no, I don't like to necessarily walk up to a table and like puff out the feathers or anything like that. But if I'm just playing with a group of people that I play with all the time, sure. I'll sit down and be really confident or casual, and you know, it just depends on the night.
And how have you brought in those skills over to being a real estate agent and also um, accountability skills, right? So there's a
Hmm.
lot of accountability based around playing poker, right? Like you can't just not play at all or not practice your skills or not think about it and then just show up and anticipate a win, right?
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't use it, you lose it. That's for sure. When it comes to poker, the more you play, the better you get. And especially if you're like a student of the game. And how that sort of translates to real estate, again, every deal is different in real estate. What their needs and wants are, and what the end result that they're looking to achieve, they're different every single time. So you need and really understand what the outcome is that people are looking for. Ask questions to understand, not just to ask the next question, is sort of a key element. Um, and then I think the biggest sort of transitioning part with poker to the real estate side of things is negotiating. Because although we're doing a lot of non-verbal negotiating at a poker table, you're very verbally, you're negotiating, not just with your client, but certainly you want the right negotiator talking to another real estate agent. So you want somebody who's has your back, understands exactly what needs to be done and how to achieve that. Strategy is everything. Strategy is everything in poker, and it is everything when it comes to real estate.
Mm,
So
there's the parallel.
that's sort of there's a huge parallel. Yeah, yeah. And the desire to win is very important because when my client wins, I win. So it's, we're all in it together.
And so teach us about what you've learned about having to be flexible or even both of these things, even in personal relationships as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, flexibility to me is change. So it's being prepared, knowing things are going to change, and trying to make the best decision you can with the information that you have at the time. Again, that's poker right there. It's a game of information. And you want to get as much information as you can to make the best decision. And that's the same thing about being flexible. I can schedule out my calendars, and I do, and I prioritize must do's, should do's, and that can wait every day.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean a meeting isn't going to drop down, or a client emergency isn't going to come in, or, you know, we didn't get the keys. Like everything changes, and you have to be able to adapt and change and make the right choices for the right reasons. Knowing that one thing that you change impacts, maybe two or three other things. So it's the flexibility is very, very important, especially dual career. You need to be organized and you need to be very flexible.
Mhm. And that's so true. Change is inevitable. Every single day we wake up as human beings as somebody different, right? We
Yeah.
bring with us the things that we've learned the day before. And so my next question is going to be a little bit long-winded. So just bear with me here. There is like a method to the question that I have and why I sort of want to set it up properly because I think you'd be a great role model for people that are listening to this. Okay.
Mm.
So when it comes to having the flexibility in the dual careers and really being able to confidently step into situations, knowing that you have enough flexibility to figure out whatever's going to happen, right? Because with both being a realtor and in poker, you have no idea what kind of cards you're going to get, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Play on the cards.
Good. It's true though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's totally true. And so the thing is with us as human beings, sometimes having dual careers, having a lot going on, sometimes we can get also pressures like from both of these things. What's great about you and other people that fall into the category of being freedom minded, right? Because you have to be more freedom minded to have the flexibility to be open to possibility. A lot of people, if they're not freedom minded, then they can see the roadblocks instead of the possibility. Okay. So it's great that you're really freedom minded. Then, so my question is
Yeah.
when you're getting the pressure from both sides, what tools or what tools or what sort of actions do you take to allow yourself to really look after yourself in those moments where you need that?
It's interesting because I have to say every situation is very different, and my reaction in those really high pressure situations can be different as well. Sometimes I literally will just power through and then power down after I'm through it, if that makes sense. And I'll just, okay, now I can breathe and now I can reassess how everything went, and just take that, few moments to really consider, could I have done that better? Could I have done it better for myself? Did I need to take a break part way through and really reassess, or, for the times that I power through? And then other times I'm like, you know what? If I don't respect my time, no one else is going to either. So those really high pressure times are because a lot of times you're not considering, how this is going to affect the rest of your day or what it's taking away from in order to deal with the situation. So it's really looking at it with balance, I guess, is the best way to describe it. I look at it with balance, and I try and make sure to take a breath, take a beat, and work through the high pressure situations. Do I get it right every time? Not at all. But I always end up doing the best possible job for my clients. In the end, that's what matters, and that's what they're hiring me for. And then I know, later on I can decompress, look back and reflect and see, could I have slowed things down? Could I have, like I said, taken that minute for myself? But high pressure, I mean, that's what salespeople live for as well. So it's kind of, the adrenaline's a good thing in my life.
Yeah, it's almost like a driver, right? With
Yeah.
what we call, again, freedom-minded people, they work well under pressure, right? And it's part of what drives them as well. And the interesting thing about us as human beings is we also operate out of our nervous system. So the fact that you've had proof within your nervous system that you can work through things, and so what you were saying about how, okay, one of your options is just, I'm just going to push through, and then I'm just going to, take a beat later and observe
Yeah.
and learn and give myself feedback to learn how I could have done that differently or better. Um, which is a really useful way for people to operate. So anybody listening to this, see what your version of how Victoria does things, of how you can implement that into your life, because it's very important that um, you can take a break, but you don't want to take too long of a break, and then all of a sudden you miss out on opportunities, right? So a lot of
Yeah.
people that, I have worked with real estate agents in the past, and sometimes they get themselves in so much overwhelm, and they won't blow off a client, but they'll rebook them, or so they're not on top of something and maybe missed out on an
Yeah.
opportunity. And this is just a natural human thing, right? A lot of people, if they get invited out to a party or here or there, they'll be like, oh, yeah, I'll go. But then when it gets closer to the event, they're just like talking themselves out of it. And then they
Mm-hmm.
don't show up. And then they hear about the party later and it was a blast. And then they go through this whole emotional roller coaster about like, oh, I should have went, or I
Mm-hmm.
shoulda, coulda, woulda. Which the
Yeah.
great thing that I'm hearing from you, Victoria, is that you're doing it in a healthy way. In terms, there's this thing in neurolinguistics, we call it, there's no such thing as failure, there's only feedback.
Yes. I definitely agree with that statement.
So
You
what
can
would
only
be
learn.
You can, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So us as humans, we are here to learn. So
Mm-hmm.
what would be the biggest learning that you've ever had that helped you immensely? Or like the biggest thing that maybe um you didn't do correctly, or actually there's no such thing as doing anything incorrectly, but what's the
Yeah.
biggest learning? What's the biggest learning? That's yeah.
So I'll bring it to like the dual career, doing media and real estate at the same time. The biggest learning curve with that was, I thought I was a very organized person with regards to my schedule. And that was the learning curve for sure. When you are booking appointments for two different careers, And they're both sales. So I have a lot of flexibility in my schedule, which is amazing. And this is why it works as well as it does. But there are times where you are booking through two different calendars. So that was a learning curve. Invite yourself from each calendar so it's all lined up. That was my biggest thing, scheduling. And again, I learned over the past few years to protect my time. And that is living and dying by your schedule and leaving room for the flexibility you're going to need to build into it. That was the biggest learning curve on that side of things. The biggest learning curve, I mean, real estate, you're always learning, right? Like every single deal, like I said, is different. So you're always learning. And it's really about having the right people around you that you can collaborate with. And just being confident that you're building the relationships you need to build with the seller agent, if you're on the buyer's side, or with the buyer's agent, if you're on the selling side. Like, they want to do business with realtors they like, right? So it's very important to start that relationship the second you do the showing. And that's been key to my success and to the wins during especially multiple offer situations where I've built those relationships with the agents right out of the gate.
That's awesome. And that's such a great learning too, right? And that's actually a good segue into my next question is, ooh, anyone looking at her being like, ooh,
Look
what's
what I
under
did
door?
there.
What's behind door number 4? Yeah. And so one thing about being a real estate agent and I appreciate you being here and allowing me to use you as an example of so that people
Yeah.
can learn, right? And so the example of 2 is that people generally gravitate themselves towards you, right? Like, so it's like this, and I'm the same way as well, right? So there's a couple, like there's pros and cons to that. It's great for the industry that you're in, right? It's also great for the industry that I'm in, that people like you're just very open and you see humans as like all beautiful humans. All humans are great, like, and
Yeah.
so there's like this openness to that, which again, going back to you building those relationships that you're gravitating, or if you believe in the universe is sending the right people to you that you're meant to be connected with. Um, so my question is, it's a two-part question. One, what like what sort of how do you keep yourself grounded to be open to so many people on an ongoing basis, right? 2, what boundaries have you had to put into place to keep yourself grounded as well?
That's
I
a
love the
good
look
one.
on your face when I just said that. You're like, this is a good one.
This is a good one. Okay, I'll go to the grounded part of it. I had to really learn that when I'm done a lot of larger events, like maybe 3 in a row, all week long, and I've had back-to-back meetings throughout the entire week, like it is exhausting. I hate to say the word that you're on, but you are on, right? Like you're trying to learn as much as you can about the people around you, and you want to see those opportunities when they come your way. Um, but it is exhausting sometimes. Like it does drain you to take in all that information and also to share the knowledge that you know. So the grounded part, it takes a while, and I don't always get that right either, to be quite honest, Tree. So I understand when I've had a lot of events that I need that like afternoon or the full like Sunday, whatever it is, to just, okay, I'm not working. I mean, I'm always working, but I'll try and take an afternoon
Yeah, but
to really
you're
just
choosing to
do nothing.
decompress. Yeah.
Yeah, just do nothing. And like, yeah, it can be a lot. And yeah, people, I love that you're the same. Like we've talked about this before. Like people do gravitate towards people who are open and genuinely are interested and curious about getting to know somebody, right? Because you can tell so quickly when people actually don't care. You know what I mean? Like people can
Well,
fake it. They can fake it, but you're gonna figure it out pretty quickly, right? And like with you and I, it's pretty genuine. Like I would genuinely want to learn about other people. So
and the key word that you said there was curiosity, right? Like
yeah,
we are both you and I, we are genuinely curious, not only about all humans, but about businesses, about how things work, right? So also poker, how things work. You're interested about each of the people, right? So
Yeah.
it's a genuine interest and that curiosity allows people to feel grounded actually when they're around you, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So see how I loop that back?
I did. I see what you did. I see what you did there.
I see what you did. So, so teach us about boundaries.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where if I've, been back-to-back meetings all week, had two, maybe three networking events that same week. When it comes to the weekend, I might have social engagements. And my boyfriend is so understanding that he knows that if it's been too much, he gives me the pass and he's like, I'll go to this one on my own. Or, do you feel like doing this tonight? We don't have to. He gives me the out when he knows I've had if it's something very, very important to him, I try and make sure I've balanced my week a little bit better so that I can for sure go. But yeah, it's one of those things where I just need to allow myself to have the outs when I need them.
Mhm.
And he's a great support. Like I can't say enough about how wonderful he is. Yeah.
Awesome. And it's
Yeah.
always good to have um, a, a person in your life that gives you that support, whether it's a partner or a best friend or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
it's good to have people around you that really help you push the envelope as well as keep you grounded. So my husband does that for me as well because I can like
Mhm.
I love being around people and people energize me and sometimes I can overbook myself to an extent because in the moment I'm just like this is gonna be amazing, it's gonna be exciting, we'll go for dinner, we'll do this and blah blah. And then all of a sudden like not realizing the week that I had and
Yeah.
then trying to push through everything. It's like and you're the same as I am is that you'll do it but then you'll crash a little bit afterwards. But
Yeah.
it's a small crash.
Yeah. But going back to your boundary setting, I think I probably don't do as good a job at that as I should.
Mhm.
But like you said, my support system, he does a great job of that for me.
So
Like truly, I could probably set up a few more boundaries. I try and work like my schedule as my boundaries, like protect my time and things like that. But yeah, certainly if somebody needs me, I like to be able, I'm here to help people, right? Like that's what we both do.
Mhm.
So you want to be able to help them, but not to take away from, your happiness or your life or your time with your family and things like that. So yeah, I could do better at the boundary setting, Tree.
Yeah. And it's interesting too what you're saying about in terms of helping people because that's also it's a nervous system thing because it feels good, right? To know that you've helped somebody. So even, you helped somebody find their first home, right? Like what a great feeling. It's almost like you get to live the excitement with them and almost live
Yeah.
vicariously like through them and every time it's a first home it's like ooh it's exciting again, right? It's like going to a wedding and
Yeah.
or going to like a baby shower or you're living vicariously through different people, right? Which
Mhm.
is these are huge milestones in people's lives that you get to be a
Yeah.
part of, which is really cool. And for me, from a change perspective, right? Like human behavior experts, I've heard people call us even change workers,
Mhm.
which is a newer term that's sort of maybe it's an older term, just looping back around. I don't know, but
Yeah.
um, so it's a milestone in somebody's life when they're making that change in themselves and getting the relief.
Yeah.
Some clients that I've had that come for stress management and they just had pain that they've been sucking it up about, and they learn how to relax and really let go of the stress, and all of a sudden the pain's gone.
Hmm.
So that's which is huge change, right?
Yeah.
I find us as human beings, sometimes we can force ourselves to go through certain things that we don't actually have to go through, but we just sort of suck it up in a way. And then all of a sudden, an immense amount of time goes by, years, sometimes decades, and people don't realize that they actually have the opportunity to change, right? Like Um,
Mm.
and so I want to loop back to kind of boundaries, because the interesting thing about boundaries is it's almost like framing or managing people's expectations, right? So you and we both fall into the category of like being pleasers, right? We, in our nervous system, from a nervous system perspective, we don't like, if we found out that somebody didn't like us, like our conscious mind would be like, oh, we're okay, right? But our nervous system's like, oh, they don't like us? Like, what could they not like, right? And that's a common like human thing. But when we frame things in a way and have boundaries set up in a certain way, especially from like a business perspective, then it works even more beautifully for the client and also for the person, like for you, right? Like I've worked with
Mhm.
a bunch of realtors that they had absolutely no boundaries. So when you talk about your schedule, right? Like they'd be just accepting every time that the client did, and then they'd reschedule everything. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden the client would cancel last minute and they took the time to reschedule their whole schedule. And
Hmm.
they end up being in so much resentment towards the client that the night, like, so it ruined the relationship because people's emotions, some people like, we our emotions are legit. Every moment of every day we're in an emotional state. And so when people are in resentment or anger, it can come out in certain ways, right? Because all of a
Yeah.
sudden the realtor can be like, oh, I'm busy, right? Or which is
Right.
unuseful. So teach us about an experience that you had that something happened and you ended up getting emotional about it and then got yourself out of it. Or maybe you didn't.
Hmm.
Ooh.
Um, I wasn't expecting that question. I wasn't really expecting any of them, but
Or, or maybe
um,
even from like a poker perspective where you knew that you were going to win and
oh,
then
you never know. You can't know 100%. I mean, I like to pretend sometimes that I'm just like, I'm just going to win this tournament, no big deal. But um,
so you manage
with
your
regards,
expectations with poker. So that's what you're
what?
wanting. You manage your
Yeah.
expectations with poker. You have boundaries because you know you're
Yeah.
just going in. So cool. Okay, so
Yeah.
what about real estate?
So with the real estate side of things, yeah, I can understand a lot of agents getting caught up. Like you don't want to miss that phone call. It could be the next big deal. You don't want to not book that meeting immediately. You don't want to not drop everything to go and show this next house because it could be the one for that client. I completely understand why a lot of realtors do that, and that's a level of service that some people would really expect. For me, I take a bit more of a research approach. I'm not going to drop everything to go and show a house I haven't done any research on. Like just because they saw it on Realtor and they like the way it looks, doesn't mean there's not a ton of things in the background. There could be an offer on it already. It could have issues with the roof that's listed in the listing for the realtor remarks to be seen, right? So
Or the
I
neighbors, or it could back onto something that's really
it,
noisy or
yeah,
yeah.
like we're not, we don't want to just go out, I don't know, I guess half cocked and go in and look at houses, um, just to look at houses and waste their time and mine, right? So yeah, I tend to take the approach that, yeah, we can absolutely go take a look at that home. Does this time work for you or whatever? Like, it's not like I manage the client's sort of expectations right out of the gate. I typically don't have clients that are like, I need to see this house right now. Because I've already managed that out of the gate. I've already said, okay, so when we see a house, I'm going to go back and I'm going to take a look at all the research. I'm going to call the seller agent, have a discussion with them. So it may take some time to get us in there because I might be waiting for a phone call back. So you have to just manage those expectations. And again, in the big scheme of things, that protects your time as well. And it protects the relationship, much to your point earlier. Like you're not going to get upset with your client because you're already managing them right off the offset.
Great. Yeah. So that's the boundaries that you put up, right?
Yeah, I guess.
You,
Yeah.
yeah. So you put it in this framework right at the get-go. And from a human behavior perspective, the cool thing is that what you're actually doing is building more trust with your client because you're teaching them about your processes and then all of a sudden they're trusting you because you're just not off the cuff, either, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so those are really good things. So any business owner or really busy person or somebody that's wanting to sort of have this second hide hustle. second, second, now there's cock and hide. Okay, well, this
We're going
shifted
a
in a
different
weird
direction with this
direction.
podcast. It's
So,
taking
but
a turn.
yeah. So people that want to, dip their toe into having a side hustle or generating more what we call passive income kind of thing,
Mm.
um, that this is a really good episode to share with a friend that maybe is wanting to do a side hustle or even listening to this over and taking notes of how you can learn off of how it is that Victoria operates and really be curious of how you can model her behavior or implementing some of these tools or techniques to keep yourself grounded, really be in control of your scheduling, have good balance, um, be in a ton of curiosity, right? Because the truth is, if we're
Yeah.
not in curiosity, we're in judgment.
Oh,
You're,
yeah, that's a really good way to think about
yeah,
it. That's so true. I
it
was gonna
is.
say too, just adding to that, and I think this is from Survivor. Expect the unexpected. It's like it's so true in life and very true in that show too. But it
Mhm,
you have to expect the unexpected and be flexible and ready for change and go with the flow.
mhm.
That's like that's the main thing. Structure your day as well as you can, but expect the unexpected. It always pops
Yeah,
up.
absolutely. Pivot when needed, right? Like
Hmm.
expect the pivot, expect it. So
Yeah.
awesome. So, is there anything else you want to share with people that are listening to this?
Just that Tree is fantastic. Um, and everyone should go and meet with her at least once. Um, and you'll want to go back for more. Like I've already learned so much just on this one call. Like I imagine everybody listening will have taken something away from this for sure. And also, yeah, if anybody's looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, they should call me. So get
How
it
can
sold via Victoria.
where can people follow you or connect with you?
Yeah, so also the social medias, it would be at Sold via Victoria, or my pages on Facebook and Instagram. And then my website is soldviavictoria.ca as well.
Awesome. Yeah, and
Or you can just
we'll
tell
have all the
Tree.
links. Yeah, well, we'll have all the links and all the descriptions and stuff like that. But it's
Yeah.
with hypnosis and neurolinguistics, repetition is the mother of all learning. So for them to really hear you say that repetitiously, it's interesting with social media. It's not just like, hey, you can call this. It's like, here's my website, here's my social media, here's all of
Yeah.
these different things, how we can connect with one another. So awesome. Well, thank you so much for being a guest. And I know so many people are going to be learning so much from this.
Aw.
And yeah,
Thank you so much for having me, Tree.
pleasure is all mine.
Well, folks, that's a wrap for today's episode of The Root of It All with Tree. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. But before we go, I just wanted to remind you that you can follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram. And we will be posting motivational quotes and behind the scenes content that you won't want to miss. You can always sign up to come live while we're filming this, or even join us online through Zoom. We always offer open question and answer after each episode that we don't record, so it's all private, but you can get more involved. So sign up for free at businessgrowthresults.com, and we're going to cover all kinds of different topics that you're not going to want to miss. And if you're looking for that one-on-one guidance or help, be sure to book a free screening. You can do that at burlingtonhypnosis.ca or call 905-634-4777. And finally, you can catch our podcast on all major podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. So be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode. Thanks for listening.